Alright, hello guys, this is XP Scaling, and today I'm outside. It's beautiful outside about the park. They're playing free jazz, so hey, you guys got some free background music for once, and so you know how to make better videos. But today we will be making part 2 for Yujiro Hanma Scaling, and this will be mainly covering some of his most important fight before the maximum tournament arc. So without further ado, here I go. So if anybody's managed to see my previous video, the video where Baki first challenged Yujiro has had at least I'd say a 4-year time skip since then, and we hear from Captain Shredum how much stronger he has gotten after essentially doing immense training. And to give you guys proof as to how much stronger, or in this case how effective his training is, completely blitzes Baki by catching him, and with just a finger puts him to sleep. Now please note, this should be extremely impressive given the fact that Baki bare minimum is at least 3 times stronger than what he was when he first fought Yujiro, and Yujiro just blatantly shows to have no problem honestly manhandling him. So taking that into account, Yujiro has to, taking into the account that Baki stated he needs to at least be 3 times stronger than what he should have been back then when he first fought Yujiro. He thought had he been 3 times stronger, he could have beaten Yujiro. That would mean bare minimum Yujiro is at least 3 times stronger than what he has shown previously. So in terms of AP, what I calculated him to be at last time, he should at least be capable of outputting 2.5 kilotons of TNT in terms of how hard he could strike with. And to say that he got at least 3 times stronger would mean that in terms of how hard he could hit, or in this case, his maximum AP at this point should be 7.5 kilotons. So that would mean at this point in the series, he should theoretically, or honestly, be capable of putting at least half the force of the Hiroshima bomb in terms of just AP levels. And then just going off of his speed, saying that he's at least 3 times faster than what he was, I managed to calc him being honestly around, bullet level. And to say that he's at least 3 times faster than what he was, he could honestly, I'd say for his max speed, at least be in around speeds of Mach 7.8. I mean 7.8. Sorry guys. And again, sorry if you guys hear anything in the background. So immediately after this, challenged Dopo. If anybody's seen my Dopo video, shameless plug-in. But essentially, the first time when he had fought Dopo, this is essentially how it went down. And honestly, no diffed him, despite Dopo, after 10 years of very hard training, being quite relative to him. So it took essentially the legendary karate master Dopo essentially 10 years just to catch up to him. And, much like I stated above, he has vastly increased and improved himself as a warrior, and we even get some statements more so as to how he views fighting, which I think is pretty important to his mentality as a fighter. As he stated by Baki, in terms of martial arts, he's always improving. He's not the same guy Orochi or Matobe fought back in the day. His skills are second to none, but the worst part is he's a total psycho. It's not normal, it's sick. He enjoys beating people down. He hurts people like it's a drive to have sex, or eat food. He can't go a day without injuring somebody. So, real quick, just for his mentality, and how he views fights, more so, it's going to affect how he is much later on in the series, these kind of statements. But just for, I guess, like a quick brief telling, in terms of how Yujiro is as a fighter, he essentially needs to hurt someone, and when he goes in for a fight, he usually goes in to hurt someone. So anytime he fights someone, he's usually out there looking for blood. So anytime he's in a fight, he's usually in a bloodlusted, I wouldn't say bloodlusted, but more likely in a state to kill. And to give him another example as to how much stronger he has gotten, he completely killed a bear that's at least this big And said bear was comparable to a Russian tank, as stated by this hunter. Yet despite that, Yujiro bear, honestly, just manhandled this polar bear. And again, just to give you guys how much of a psycho he is and how much he enjoys hurting people, he pulled up in a boxer's gym, essentially trapped them all in there and said, all right, now there's nowhere to hide and run, guys. And essentially just proceeded to go around killing everybody in there. Not because he likes killing, but more so just for the fact that he enjoys hurting and fighting people. And I would honestly kind of describe it, at least for him, in a sense that would make sense for him as to why he does these kinds of things. It's more so like being at the end of the game and you're still grinding for XP. Though Yujiro at this point, he just enjoys going around hurting and killing people. And he loves it to the point where he actually dreams about it and kind of gives himself wet dreams whenever he does so. So sometimes later, he actually fights the legendary Jujutsu master Matobe. And please note, Matobe is actually skilled enough to where he will be covered in this channel as he is in the maximum tournament arc. And, no lie, later on in the series, he's actually extremely impressive. So after Matobe actually spent at least a few years improving himself and getting much stronger, honestly, Yujiro's more so impressed and happy with that rather than honestly taken aback. And as the fight continues and proceeds to develop, doesn't really seem annoyed, more so doesn't care, as his attacks are actually countered and blocked, and even leaves himself purposely open for Matobe to actually use a special technique. Yet despite that, honestly just flexes out of the technique and just overpowers him blatantly. So obviously, much like I mentioned before, Yujiro would go on to have his legendary battle with Doppo, someone who after years of training actually is relative to himself. Yet despite fighting someone who should be relative to himself, only seems surprised at first and is slightly caught off guard. But this should more so be honestly quite impressive for Yujiro, as it shows even to people who should be relative to him, he seems to be more so glad that he gets to fight people like that, as for him it's not really a day-to-day thing, and it's honestly a rare occurrence for him, especially later on in the series. And in this fight, he actually does show more so his level of skill, as he should know most, if not all, martial arts in the world, if not known or unknown. And he proves this by using an unknown martial art called the Undone. Essentially, it's a very secretive martial art only passed down to the firstborns of certain bloodlines. Yet despite this, Yujiro has full knowledge and mastery of said martial art. Later on in the fight, Yujiro actually does show to actually be rather happy to actually have his technique countered, and is more so a durability feat for him, as despite having essentially his technique countered and hit by someone who is actually relative to him, seems to honestly just shrug it off and is actually quite happy about it. And to give an example as to how skilled you actually need to be in order to fight him, you should honestly, in terms of capabilities or in skill, I'm not saying somebody's going to fight him, but more so for some of the characters here that do fight him, usually they have to use very unfamiliar techniques that Yujiro does not know or is unfamiliar with or only has heard of. As when he goes in to counter Doppo here, he uses this special technique, which I mentioned, previously in my other videos, guys. And please note, the technique that was used on Yujiro was honestly perfected to the point where it could make him bleed. So this should know honestly two things. The first one being, this shows just how high and level of skill you actually need to be in order to fight someone like Yujiro, to where you are either the pinnacle in your martial art, or the technique you have to use is the pinnacle kind of technique. And 2, this is quite honestly one of the few times we actually do see Yujiro be harmed blatantly in the entirety of the series. It's honestly like potentially 4 or 5 times where he actually bleeds. So in order to use a technique like that, it has to be this dangerous to where it could harm him. Again, more so stating as to how skilled someone needs to be in order to fight someone like Yujiro, just because of 1, how strong he is, and 2, just how skilled he is as a combatant. And after further getting pressed and actually countered by someone who should be relative to him in technique, if not, I'm going to say more so above him in terms of karate, as even though Yujiro does and should know every martial art in the world, I'd say more so he's like a freestyle and uses whatever martial art he deems good for him, especially later on in the series. He pulls out something called the demon bag, which is honestly a mainstay staple for his character and what he's mainly known for. Sorry if I'm sounding like I'm rushing. I don't mean to. But essentially, just to give a little input as to how he has developed his back, or in this case, the demon back, and a little breakdown of what he has been through in the military. He has actually, in developing himself as a fighter or as a warrior, he has cleared multiple battlefields, through multiple wars that he has fought in, and it's actually more than likely that he has done so single-handedly, as in Vietnam, he, if anybody's seen that video, has essentially in 300 days caused the United Nations to cuck to him, and he was only 16 years old at the time of that happening, so you can imagine what a much older, much more developed Yujiro was capable of doing. And again, single-handedly, as we get some statements here from Stridum, he fought with me in battlefields around the world to the bitter end. I'm not going to pronounce those names because, I don't want to make this video any longer than what it should be. You rely only on your body, using it freely as a weapon, as if like a beast was set free on the battlefield. Together with your ambitions, you are called the ogre. When stepping on numerous battlefields, he was called many names and faced combat against trained killers with weapons. On all of his battlefields, he refused to use weapons, not even knives. Against all these adversities, he turned his body into a weapon during those horrible times. The dreadful Yujiro, he grew used to those horrors. They even satisfied him. When the techniques he honed for self-defense became a weapon seeking out battles. And honestly, it was actually due to this kind of exposure, which he essentially groomed himself into. It really did help him hone himself and develop himself further as a warrior, and again, bring him to essentially mastering this technique, which later on in the series, it's apparently a bloodline thing, but I'll get into that much later on. So I can't necessarily give like a measurement, since there's never been shown a measure or an estimation as to how strong he gets when he uses the demon back. But to give you guys, an explanation and not say, when he uses this is limitless strength that he gets, which obviously by no means it is. But I'd say just, potentially we could say whenever he gets this outburst of strength is more than likely higher or just as high as the time when Baki used, or in this case mastered, control over his endorphins in his body. And when he had done so, he had gotten at least a 4 times boost. Now, given the fact that Baki was able to get a 4 times boost, it's more than likely Yujiro honestly does get a 4 times boost from the demon back, though we could say higher, But I'm going to be safe and just say for now it's a 4 times boost bare minimum, seeing as I have nothing else to go off of. So given the fact that he received a 4 times boost, essentially just from flexing his back muscles too hard, though it's, pretty neat. He essentially fought someone who was relative to him and proceeds to massacre and kill Dopo. So this is honestly usually a technique which he saves for people who are, in his eyes, deserving or relative to him as a combatant. And here he goes, killing him. So overall, just to recap Yujiro, honestly, in terms of strength or an AP, he should at least be in the city block, which would be at least in about the 1 ton to about 1 to within 500 tons of TNT, or at least in the small town level, saying as in terms of maximum output, if he has gotten at least 3 times stronger, it's more than likely he could output 7.5 kilotons. And then in terms of speed, before this video or in my previous video, he was clearly in the bullet ranges of speed. And to say that he has gotten at least 3 times faster, that would at least put him in the hypersonic ranges of speed. But considering the fact that he has a demon back, and it is a very unspecified, multiplier. But I'm just going to be safe and just give it a similar multiplication as to Baki essentially controlling his endorphins. This would mean that he would get at least a 4 times boost in speed. In speed, strength, and overall durability. Sorry guys, I keep mumbling over my words. Sorry about that. That would mean at most, with a demon back, Yujiro in terms of AP could probably put out at least 30 kilotons of force, or at least twice the power of the Hiroshima bomb. And in terms of speed, him being at least 4 times faster than what he was previously in his base, he'd be able to at least reach up to speeds of at least Mach 31.2, and that would put him ridiculously in the high hypersonic. And then finally, in terms of skill, usually you have to have techniques that are, one, blatantly able to harm Yujiro, or are techniques that he has not heard of or has only heard rumors of, and 2, much like how Dopo is essentially like the GOAT in terms of karate, you have to, in terms of your skill, have to be either the peak amalgamation of your martial art, or you have to have developed yourself in martial arts to a point similar to that. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I will be leaving 3 links, mainly just so you guys can get a better understanding of his scaling through some of my previous videos, seeing as he outscales 1, himself for my first previous video, 2, Baki, and then 3, Dopo, which he kills in this video. So I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you guys leave a comment or like or something. Matter of fact, dislike, leave a hate comment. And I hope you guys enjoy till the next time. Peace.